much to know
I'm a
like,
sports fan.
like the University of Wyoming. I have no idea what they're doing in basketball. I'm not gonna lie to you, Archie.
I'm a
The last one
fan.
Yeah.
the last time I
Well, I
did
got
it,
on that.
I think the last time I did it was Logan.
Okay. Yeah.
Years ago, and it's just a wild gas.
Yeah.
And I led for like, 1 weekend.
Got you. No, I understand that. Trust me, I definitely get that. That'd probably be about as good as I could do if I make it that far.
It feels so good to be able to breathe.
We need an overflow parking lot.
Thank you.
Get more chairs. Hey, Dave. How's everything going? Good. Yeah. Good.
There's one over on this side.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, house good. Are you done? Are you in? We're still renovating. Yes. Sounded like it was gonna be a project.
Yes. Hopefully, the end of this month.
Good.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good evening, welcome everyone. It's welcome to our March board meeting, and I would invite everyone to stand, and Dr. David Phillips of First Baptist Church is going to have a prayer for us this evening.
We thank you for the gift of this beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to meet. And we pray for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Thank you for the mayor, for the council, for the gifts and talents that they bring to this position, for the love of the community. We pray, Lord, for meaningful discussion. And we pray that you would allow us to draw closer as a community, and that tonight, through the discussion and through the decisions, that they may nurture and strengthen the bonds in this wonderful community. We offer our prayer in your blessed and holy name. Amen.
Thank you, David. I pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated, please. Just in the place of announcements this evening, I'm going to read a resolution that is the board will vote on in the consent agenda. but one of our council members requested a resolution in support of Ukraine, and the board kindly consented to that. And this is the resolution that the board will vote on in the consent agenda. Whereas the sovereign nation of Ukraine has been invaded by Russian military forces without cause, and whereas Black Mountain NC joins in offering whatever support can be provided to our Ukrainian friends and neighbors and condemns the crimes and atrocities that are being perpetrated on the people of Ukraine, and whereas countless civilians and military personnel have been injured and killed by indiscriminate shelling and bombing instigated by Russia's authoritarian regime, and whereas the invasion of Ukraine and attacks against its people have been broadly condemned by U.S. President Joseph Biden, leadership of the European Union, Great Britain, and numerous other countries. And whereas hundreds of thousands of people around the world have marched in the streets to condemn these acts of violence and to show their support for the Ukrainian people. Now, therefore, I, Larry B. Harris, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, in prayer and in hope for the people of Ukraine, do hereby proclaim that the town of Black Mountain stands in solidarity with our Ukrainian neighbors, as well as the people of Ukraine, as they bravely defend their country, their freedom, and their lives. Read, approved, and adopted by a vote of the board this 14th day of March 2022. So that concludes my announcements. And I do have a proclamation on the agenda. It is the Monarch Pledge. And this is a nationwide effort here. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans, and whereas the North American monarch has declined dramatically in population over the past 2 decades, and whereas to help save the monarch butterfly, the town of Black Mountain will play a leadership role by committing to restore and preserve habitat that supports the insect's 2,500-mile migration across the continent to their nesting ground. And whereas citizens can make a difference for the monarch by planting native milkweed and nectar plants to provide habitat for the monarch and pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, play, and worship. And whereas mayors, elected officials, and government executives are encouraged to sign the National Wildlife Federation Mayor's Monarch Pledge to help foster monarch butterfly conservation. Now, therefore, I, Larry B. Harris, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, and on behalf of the Black Mountain Town Council, do hereby proclaim March 14th, 2022 to be Monarch Day. And so we are on to citizen comments, and that also will be voted on in the consent agenda. And first is Judy Eubanks.
I have a copy of what I was speaking about, I thought I would pass that around. I'd like to say many thanks to the town council, the town manager, and the Parks and Recreation and Parks Director for the beautiful new and much needed courts that we have above the lake at Lake Tomahawk. The clubhouse was packed in 2007 when the town and the architects presented the drawing of 6 tennis courts. After much discussion, the plan was then revised to rebuild the 2 courts above the lake and then put a 4-court complex below the lake. I know that none of you were on the council at that time, but I also know that the capital improvement plan is somewhere still in the archives. As you will see, that picture that I passed around is from 2007. After our community tennis players attended many council meetings to show that the need was still here, you honored part of that need by rebuilding the 2 upper courts. And we requested that within 1 to 3 years that the town would complete that 2007 plan with the 4-court complex, a bathroom, and a water fountain below the lake. We asked that you realize that the need was there then, and after 15 years, the need is even more so. Before new projects are begun, please help our town complete the ones that are already started. accounting for the use of these courts. We have families out there for tennis fun. We have BMTA's USTA teams that play there. We have clinics that teach beginning adults and beginning children, and we follow that on through till they're 14 years old. We have tourists, we have visitors, and we have second homers that use those courts. Very seldom do you go by and see those courts empty now. We ask that you help our community in finally completing this capital improvement project as soon as possible. I thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Nathan West.
Council members, Mr. Mayor, how are y'all? Appreciate y'all taking the time. I'm kind of wearing two hats today. Here on Housing Project, it is a group that advocates for community issues that pretty much everybody can get behind, things like traffic circles to slow down the speeding people coming off the interstate, things like Parks and Rec with our youth and our facilities there, the garden. Those are that we've been going out into the community, the Bearwise, and trying to educate people. And we look forward to that, and we're really enjoying it. And thank you, council member, for coming to one of our meetings and saying hello. But really why I'm here today, and all of y'all should have received a letter with over 100 signatures asking the town of Black Mountain to support our youth. And I had to say, well, what are you going to say tonight? We had over 100 people sign this. What are you going to say, Nathan? When I started writing notes, I got pretty frustrated. The fact that I have to say anything to get people on board to support our children is really disheartening. But the reality is, I can sit here and bore you with stats of everything that it does for kids to be involved in youth sports, etc. But, and I've lost my train of thought because that timer over there. Let me go to my notes. What I wanted to do instead of speaking was to bring the 500 plus children that are going to be using our facilities this summer between soccer, baseball, and softball, and bring them into this room. The reality is this room can't hold them. This building can't hold them. They would be outside waiting and coming down this hall. So I know my time's short, but everything that we do as a community should show the support to our children, should show pride in our community. If we show these children that the community is behind them, that the community cares about their future, cares about their graduation rates, cares about going on to college, all things are partly because of youth sports and having the opportunity to get out there and outdoor recreate and enjoy each other, friends, family, but community is what's really important here. And right now, we're not showing a lot of pride in the facilities here in at the town of Black Mountain. When a girl goes into slide into second base or home plate, they end up with cuts and bruises from the rocks. When the 500 of us kids that are competing for field space.
No, your time's up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Scotto?
Bend it and stretch it out.
Name and address, and that's great.
That's,
You have 3 minutes.
want to thank town council for this time. I'm Joe, I
Right,
reside at 708 Okanichi Avenue, and I'm speaking for the Recreation Commission on support for maintenance and upkeep needed for the Gray Eagle and Parks and Recreation. Having the Gray Eagle host our youth soccer tournaments helps in promoting athletic ability to our community. and the upcoming season has over 275 participants already signed up for it. I want to thank Town Council for the continued support of Parks and Recreation and the events that make Black Mountain so wonderful that Parks and Recreation does. I also want to acknowledge what a wonderful job Josh Henderson is doing and his staff for all they do in maintaining all the facilities and Parks and Rec and continuing with promotion of the events that we have. I met Josh and discussed maintenance and upkeep that was needed concerning the Gray Eagle. And we spoke. I had a couple councilmen come out for a tour. And just want to stress how imperative it is for us to continue looking at maintenance and upkeep of our Parks and Recreation Department and the facilities and the services they provide, because it really is a wonderful, wonderful place to live. And it has opportunities for both youth and for older people also. It's wonderful. And that's about it. So I want to thank the council for listening and continued support, and wish you all happy spring also.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Steve Holland, your note is that you wish to speak in the public hearing, so that would be later.
I understand.
Yeah, great. And Sean Sloan.
Good evening, council people. I'm Sean Sloan, 115 3rd Street. Tonight, I would like to express my sincere and deep thanks to Councilmember Hay. For a week before last, he held a listening session online. About 7 people attended. I watched it on tape later. But it was really an example of open government where it was a back and forth conversation where people expressed their ideas and suggestions and, hey, what about this and what about that? And I want to encourage the council to consider doing the same, other council people. I think it would lead to better understanding of your work. I know that everyone's doing the best they can, but if they don't see or have a chance to engage with you and see your humanity and see your concern, then assumptions are made that, are probably not right. So I wanted to encourage you to do that. So I do thank you for your service. And I do encourage you again to have some platform where we can have a conversation back and forth, increase your accessibility to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Next, we're on to communications, and first is Chip Craig on a presentation regarding the Buncombe County Sports Complex.
Thank you all for your time. In your consent agenda is a resolution from the Buncombe County Indoor Sports Complex. Our organization's in the process of, we've incorporated, but we're in the process of filing for a 501c3. And there's different ways of doing that or qualifying. Sometimes it's a church, sometimes it's a school. What we're positioning ourselves with the IRS, I guess, is filling the needs of government, specifically recreation. And that's basically, our attorney says it'd be really helpful to have a resolution from y'all acknowledging that we will fill a role of recreation. We're not going to compete with Parks and Rec or take the place of that, but this will be another opportunity for recreation. A little bit about what we're trying to do. You may have heard about us, the sports complex. We were originally going to be in Beacon Village, and we're really close to launching, and this little thing called COVID hit. And we put everything on pause for about 2 years, and we're just now coming back out of that. Also during that period, the owners of the Beacon Village property decided to go in a different direction. So our board has been looking for another location, and we have identified the best location, and it's probably better than Beacon, is the Black Mountain Commerce Park. And we've had a site plan done by Jesse Gardner, and we've been in talks with those folks, and excited about the possibility of being located there. Basically what this is a 118,000 square foot building with 8 basketball courts that then could be converted into really easily into 16 volleyball courts or 32 pickleball courts. The thought being with this facility is that during the day or during the week, it's used by locals. During school, it'd be pickleball, homeschoolers. After school, it'd be some kind of after-school program. Starting about 5 or so would be AU basketball. Starting about 8, it would be, or volleyball. About 8 o'clock, it would turn into some kind of adult league. On the weekends, it would be used for tournaments. It's the size that would draw regionally. One weekend, we might have a cheerleading competition. The next weekend would be pickleball tournament. Basketball, the idea is to fill it as much as possible. We have spent almost $100,000 in planning this so far. We've done a lot of studying. We've got a company out of Florida to do a feasibility study and projections for us. The Western North Carolina Hall of Fame is decided to locate there as well. We have a long way to go. The total cost is about $30 million for this project. We're working with a consultant out of Winston-Salem named David Winslow that actually a little over 20 years ago helped raise the money for the Black Mountain Arts Center. Has a very well connected in the state. The money will hopefully come from the TDA, from the state, from foundations. Long way to go. First thing is to form a nonprofit, and that's why I'm here today, to get y'all's assistance.
Great, thank you, Chip.
Mhm.
Any questions for Chip?
Thanks, Chip, for your work on this. Right now, the plan is just the indoor facility. Is that right?
Yeah, we don't have enough room for, and it's pretty challenging as it is to
Sure,
come up
sure, of
with
course.
30 million.
No, it's wonderful. I think it's a great
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, great, thank
Do
you.
you have a sense of the timeline you're hoping for?
I was just telling someone next to me, I mean, best case is probably 3 or 4 years. I mean, we've been working on this, believe it or not, since 2017. It just takes a long time, or it already been done. But between fundraising, it's going to take a couple of years, and then construction will take a while. So best case, probably 4 years.
Chip, you may not want to speak to this, and if you don't, that's fine. But there may not be anything to speak to. But is there something that you need legislatively on the TDA side to make this happen? And if so, do you mind sharing with us?
Sure. We're kind of waiting too, because the TDA gets about, it used to be 7 million, but it's going to be well over that a year to fund capital improvements. And they want to do larger projects. And so they have sent legislation, and it was supposed to happen the summer of COVID, to the state to redo the occupancy tax that is paid by hotels and vacation rentals, such that debt service would be allowed. And they're also changing the amount so that more goes to capital improvements and less goes into marketing. And we've been waiting, and supposedly it's going to pass, but we're hoping. And that's kind of been another reason we've been waiting, because without TDA support, we don't really see this happening.
Right, thank you.
Just
Thanks
for the
speaking to
public,
that.
could you tell them what TDA means?
I'm sorry. It's a great organization. It's the Tourism and Development Authority. And we manage vacation rentals, and same with hotels, but 6% there's a 6% tax on overnight stays, and that 6% goes to the TDA, and the TDA board figures out how to allocate, and part of it goes to marketing, and then a smaller part goes to capital improvements. And they've done some amazing work in terms of like the baseball fields and the soccer fields, a lot of the greenways, the civic center. It's amazing. I encourage y'all to go to their website and see the list of projects they funded.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Good, thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
Sounds a great project. Hope it can work. Citizens Climate Lobby presentation, Steffi.
All right. Thank you for having us today. My name is Steffi Roush, and I'm here with Louise Lorton, representing Citizens Climate Lobby. We are seeking your support for a city council resolution in support of federal climate legislation called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. Citizens Climate Lobby, by the way, oh, there's a clicker, isn't there? Is an international nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots advocacy organization focused on national policies to address climate change. We help generate the political will necessary for passage of a carbon fee and dividend proposal. And we train and support volunteers to engage elected officials, the media, and the public. A lot of people don't know how long we have. And so we like to make it very known at the very front of this that the timeline we have, according to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the leading international scientific authority on all things related to global warming. And they say we need to reduce our emissions by 50% by 2030. That is only 8 years away. 100% by 2050. And then we have to take carbon out of the atmosphere. A daunting timeline that we as a generation will be challenged to meet. So what makes a good climate solution? Well, we need one that drives large-scale change quickly, that's effective, uses incentives, a carrot and a stick that supports choice. We need it to be fair and sustainable, meaning progressive, won't hurt low-income people. Sticky and durable, meaning it's sustainable and healthy for the planet and the economy. Some of you may not know what the federal climate policy options are on the table today, so I'm going to state that for everyone here in the audience as well. The four main federal climate policy options on the table today basically are regulations and subsidies, I would say, in there. Cap and trade, carbon tax, and carbon fee and dividend. 3 of which are market-based carbon pricing options. Those are on the left. And 3 that all cost taxpayers money, those on the right. Regulations are the most costly and least effective and not something that we know Republicans will support. Cap and trade was tried many years ago, and no legislator today will support it because it is quite literally a managerial nightmare and only covers 1/3 of the market. A carbon tax is regressive, meaning it will cost households money with no offset, and also something Republicans will not support because they signed a pledge not to raise taxes. Therefore, we feel that a carbon fee and dividend approach ends up being the gold standard option that does so many beneficial things, as you can see in this comparison chart that we will talk about in the next few slides. The Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act will reduce America's carbon pollution to net zero by 2050, so it's effective. How it works is that it places a steadily rising fee on fossil fuel companies at the source, coal mine, oil well, or port to the country, the entrance to the markets, and returns the revenue back to all households equally, meaning everyone gets the same amount. The fee that will be passed down through the markets will steer us away from fossil fuels while creating a level playing field for clean energy to compete against the cheaper fossil fuel options. It will also encourage innovation to happen faster and give businesses, banks, and energy companies the predictability they need to funnel their money towards a clean energy transition faster. Businesses will pass along their increased costs, and those that lower their emissions the fastest will make out better than those who do not in this scenario. So they will not be hurt, businesses. It is easy to implement and will offset the rising costs that consumers will bear. This way, everyone can afford the transition, which makes it transparent to the people and equitable. We'll get into a border adjustment in a minute. So the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act doesn't let government keep the money to choose the winners and losers of energy, but instead puts more money in people's pockets. They're helping to offset the rising costs for those who can't afford it. This monthly carbon cashback dividend check can be spent how they wish, just like the COVID economic payments. A 4-person home after 10 years would receive $300 to $400 a month, which is about $3,000 to $5,000 per year. And then with less carbon pollution, cleaner air, it will create a healthier environment for people and saves lives. As well as help to create more jobs and grow the economy. CCL paid for a remedy report to study the economic benefits of a carbon dividend approach and found that certain industries like healthcare, beverage and food sector, finance, insurance, real estate, Chip Craig is one of the endorsers, will grow from this solution because when people have more money in their pockets, especially low and middle income households, they end up spending it on the economy. The border adjustment is an extremely important part of this bill. It is meant to protect U.S. manufacturers and jobs by charging the same carbon fee on all imported goods to the U.S. while giving a refund or credit at the border on all exported goods. This will level the playing field so that countries like China and India will be required to pay as well. And it will prevent U.S. businesses from moving elsewhere to avoid the fee. It is also meant to help bring other countries on board because they will prefer to bring this revenue into their own country versus giving it to other countries, thereby making it an international solution. In fact, the EU and Canada are adopting a border carbon adjustment for 2023, which means our goods will become less competitive if we do not adopt a similar carbon border adjustment as well. And you need a carbon price in order to adopt a border carbon adjustment. So it really is the key to getting the world on board, and it is proven legal. Also, it's important to note that we import more products than we export, so the excess revenues are planned to be given to a green climate fund to help government fund some of the energy transition. This chart shows the total amount of carbon dividend revenue expected for each year and how the revenue will be allocated between carbon dividends sent to households in green and the administrative cost of the program, the small sliver of orange at the top, will remain at 2% of the carbon fees collected during the lifetime. So it's very cheap. It pays for itself. And we also paid for a household impact study to show how the gains from a carbon dividend approach are concentrated among those considered most vulnerable within our society, those with lower incomes, the youngest and oldest, and minorities. The chart on the left shows 5 quintiles from low-income households on the left to high-income households on the right. Because low and middle income households are 60 to 70% of all households have lower than average carbon footprints when compared to high income earners, they will get back more in carbon dividends than they will pay in the rising cost of the things that they buy. The carbon pricing momentum is growing worldwide. CCL is responsible for getting carbon fee and dividend passed in Canada 2 years ago and was upheld in the Supreme Court recently in Canada. Also, the World Bank carbon pricing timeline shows that we now have 65 initiatives of carbon pricing around the world, which covers 25% of emissions globally and has doubled over the past few years. 80% of our imports come from countries with a carbon price in place, and 12 of the 15 largest economies in the world who either have implemented carbon pricing or plan to, US, India, and Russia do not. China approved ETS cap and trade as a national policy in 2019. The Economist statement shows wide support for carbon dividends by 3,600 economists, virtually all economists, and the largest number of Nobel Prize winning economists, Federal Reserve chairs, and every economic advisor to the president since Ford. Janet Yellen, Biden's Treasury Secretary, helped put this statement together. They are in support of carbon dividends. There are many statements of support, one by the U.S. Climate Finance Working Group, and one of them that you can see is the American Bankers Association, at the very top. And they say multiple statements like, we support the use of market-based mechanisms of price on carbon that supports long-term decision-making to drive capital investment. There's also the U.S. Commodities Futures Trading Commission. A price on carbon is the single most important step. You have the Chamber supports a market-based approach to accelerate GHG emissions, which could mean carbon pricing or something else. And of the American Petroleum Institute, believe it or not, actually said that they would prefer that over regulations, which would cost them money. And then you have 150 businesses in North Carolina District 11, soon to be 14, and 14 in Black Mountain, and 7 municipalities in North Carolina: Asheville, Apex, Chapel Hill, Durham, Knightdale, Pittsboro, and Sylva. In this climate opinion map from Yale, it shows the majority of adults support taxing fossil fuel companies while also reducing other taxes. You also have a climate poll by a conservative pollster, Frank Luntz, showing bipartisan support for a carbon dividend solution, including 4-to-1 support overall, 2-to-1 GOP support, and 75 support from Republicans under 40. So why should we support this? There are many reasons why we feel a municipal resolution is helpful, not only to help federal legislation get passed, but also to help support action locally. They need to hear more from their district legislators. We need local support to help make climate a bridge issue versus a wedge issue, and we need to protect our towns, households, and businesses from the rising cost. Cities are going to bear this cost, as well as the people. There are also many reasons why we feel this legislation can be supported in a bipartisan way, because it aligns with both conservatives and progressives' values. Because we can clean up the air and water while also boosting our economy. It's transparent and protects the poor when revenue neutral. It's easiest to implement and least costly of all the solutions. Its households can make independent choices and get pocket money to buy what they want. Does not grow government. It spurs innovation to happen faster. It boosts the economy, especially local ones. It achieves greater emission reductions than any other policy. It addresses all sectors of the economy levied at the source and encourages global action to get the revenue. So will you sign a resolution in support is why we are here today. We have given you a copy of that resolution that you can look at, as well as a handout that I asked Savannah to print out for you that has some frequently asked questions. We've met with some of you already. We'd love to meet with some of you more if you'd like before you decide on voting for this resolution, but we would love to have your support for this. It really will speak to our legislators. And I guess I'd like to open it up to any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Pickleball presentation.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Fairley, and I'm speaking on behalf of the pickleball community. I thank you all for inviting me here today, and I want to introduce to you two other people who are active in this community, Suzanne Money and Fran Thigpen. You'll hear more about what they do in a few minutes. The pickleball community owes a debt of gratitude, back to slide 1, to Carolyn Johnson, who introduced this sport to Black Mountain in 2018. And I want to thank each of you. We began talking with you in 2018. Mayor Harris and Josh Harrell went out with us, and they saw how a tennis court had been converted into pickleball courts, and they converted one of the courts on the lower part of Lake Tomahawk. Josh Henderson has been wonderful in helping us get the supplies that we need. He also has helped us write our memorandum of understanding with the town, and so we're very grateful. And then I want to thank you, because I think over the last couple of weeks you've been besieged with emails about Thank you for your support and for receiving them and the graciousness with which you've done that. We really do encourage you to come out and play pickleball with us. You will have a wonderful time. You will enjoy it. And then it will refresh you to go back and be the leaders that you are in making Black Mountain the town that it is, the leader in Western North Carolina. You're probably tired of hearing by now that pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country. Well, why is it so? According to the AARP magazine in February, it's been documented that pickleball helps your mind, body, and social life. You can see from the quote right up there, I'm glad to get up first thing in the morning and get my exercise in. The New York Times echoed this very same sentiment. Many of you may know Alan Muscat. He's known on TV and in this area as the mushroom foraging man. Alan said to me, pickleball has changed my life. And he's alluding not just to the exercise component, but he's also talking about something that's harder to define. It's totally expanded his sense of community. Andrea Hoover is our neighbor over off Enthofer. She's just moved to town, and she said it has opened up the community for her, a whole new sense of being. You can read Don and Jerry's testimonies there. Pickleball may not cure everything, but it definitely is a health benefit. The bottom line is you don't live to be our age without having some sort of health issue. Pickleball is a great way to address these issues, with the added bonus is that it's wonderful socialization and we have fun. In other words, pickleball is really good for the whole person. The Black Mountain Pickleball Group has over 130 people who have played with us during the past year. During the winter months, we get to play indoors and outdoors. We have a dedicated group of folks who play outdoors no matter the season. I had the limit at 40 degrees. They set it even lower. Our group represents people from Black Mountain and the Asheville area. Our guest players have come from every southern state. This summer we had a woman from Florida who was standing at the gate. I invited her to play with us. Well, she was the state champion in Florida. We were pretty humbled, but she gave us a lot of pointers. She promised to come back this summer. Since January, we've had visitors from Colorado, New York, and Kentucky. One of the great things about pickleball is that it's a fun sport for all ages. And it's not just retired folks who like pickleball. Tom Mill's granddaughter is now 5 and she's not yet playing, but she does run around the court with a pickleball, with a paddle, bouncing it. So she's got a start on it. And as you can tell from the chart, these are people who play with us regularly. I've added it to 130. Some of them haven't filled out the information form that tells us their age. But we have this level of players, and I want to tell you that the 70 and 80 crowd give a really good game to the 50 crowd. It is a sport that is available for all ages. The son of one of our members is a physical therapist, and he told his mom after he came out and played with us, and he comes back anytime he comes to town, he says, movement is the key to staying healthy. And we are certainly moving around. Throughout the year, Suzanne and Fran offer pickleball lessons to the community. This is our group that just ended a session, and it's 4 sessions. It's not just a one-time deal, it's 4 times. We already have 10 people signed up to play with us and learn in May. Jean has played almost daily since her lessons a year ago. Pickleball does not require any previous athletic experience. We have many players who during their career just didn't have time to play. But in retirement, it's the perfect sport for getting out and having vigorous play and socialization. Plus, it's easy to learn. It does not require a major outlay of money to start. It requires a paddle. We provide the ball that's floating around on the floor, and we need a court. And that's pretty much all you need to play pickleball. Most of you know Jessica Clark from the Center for the Arts. She began playing with us last year. This November, she wrote down on the sign-in sheet this statement about pickleball and what it's meant to her, as she reflected over Thanksgiving and what she was thankful for. Ideally, Jessica would play 7 days a week and on dedicated pickleball courts. You know I was getting to that. But this is not the case in Black Mountain. The biggest challenge to our play is we need our own courts. Throughout the year, we share the court, as Judy has said, with the men's tennis group, the women's tennis group, the lessons that they're offering, and the USTA tournaments. On Sundays throughout the year, you will often see pickleball players and tennis players competing for court time on the 2 courts below Lake Tomahawk. Based on the sign to the right, we're pretty sure the tennis crowd would be happier without us there. So what do we need to do in order to set up for our play? And you can be pretty sure it involves chalk. That's Don. He's got a chalk line, and so what in the world are you doing with the chalk line at 9 o'clock in the morning? Well, in order for us to have 4 pickleball courts, we chalk the other tennis court, making 2 additional pickleball courts. Thanks to you, we don't have to chalk 2 of the courts because we already have lines. So using chalk and a plumb line, we line the tennis court, and then we now have 4 pickleball courts. After we line the courts, we have to set up the nets, and then play begins. It's a lot to go in order to play, but we love doing it. It is so much fun, and it brings enjoyment to every one of us. This sport of pickleball has adults adjusting their daily lives to include 2 to 3 hours of intense activity at least 3 days a week, and in some cases, 6 days a week. At the end of the match, no matter how competitive, the players tip their paddles and say, pickle, pickle, or pickle. So what do we do following vigorous play? We take down the 4 nets. You see the net there. You see the tennis net behind that net. Then there's another pickleball net behind that. We load up the nets. We pack them in a container. We store them in the blue container that you see open over there. And then sometimes we have the opportunity to wash the courts. I wish I had a photo from last summer's play when we not only lined the courts, set up the nets, took down the nets, but then we got to wash the courts. Seriously? Well, we weren't real happy about it, but we did. Whenever the Women's Tennis League had a tournament, USTA requires that they have 3 dedicated tennis courts. Dedicated means no pickleball lines. So they've got the 2 courts above the swimming pool, and then this 1 court that you see the players on, we have lined that court. We bring out brushes, we bring out water, and we scrub. We finish our vigorous play, and then we get to scrub the lines. So, what do we want? Obviously, the pickleball community wants our own pickleball courts. Black Mountain is on the map in so many other ways. It's really time for this wonderful community to join in the fun with its own dedicated courts. We want this for today. We want it for future generations. This photo may look scary to you. You may be thinking there's absolutely no way Black Mountain can have 6 pickleball courts. But these courts are the equivalent of 2 to 2.5 tennis courts. That's all. Last summer, we often had 30 to 40 people who were playing on 4 courts, Today, we had 24 people on 3 indoor courts. But when we have 38 people, it means that we've got 16 people who are playing, 4 people to a court. It leaves 22 people who are waiting to play. And it is a very community sport, so it's not like people can come in at another time. They want to play together. So we're asking you for enough courts to meet this growing demand. You can tell these numbers. In July, we had 70 players. We played 14 times. Those 14 times, 402 people showed up to play. In November, we had 27 days of play because we were indoors and outdoors. We had 74 players. Those 74 players showed up 387 times to play. I could give you statistics from out-of-town players. I could give you statistics of the age range of everybody who plays every day. I will say that last month, in February, we had 72 people who played pickleball. 72. The average age was 71 years old. Because of the physical, the social, the emotional benefits of pickleball, this sport is exploding in popularity. We hope that this information will lead you to the conclusion that it's time for Black Mountain to join up and build pickleball courts for the whole community. I want you to look carefully at this picture. You know most of these folks. They're all Black Mountain residents. They are some of our players who play 3-4 times a week, if not daily. These players are between the age of 75 and 83 years old. Just take that in. They ask you to help all of us stay healthy and active. So we ask you to please add pickleball courts to Black Mountain, outdoor pickleball courts to Black Mountain during their lifetime. They really mean this, and so do we. I really appreciate your time and attention. Pickle.
Thank you. Any questions for Lynn? Yeah, Bill.
I have a question. What type of surface is required to play pickleball?
Pretty much not a soft surface, because the ball that's wandering around here is a hard wiffle ball. And
Can you play it on concrete?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we play on.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Judd Dormery.
I don't know that he is, I have not seen him. I don't know that he's here, so we
Okay.
may not do that presentation.
All right. Do that some other time. Consent agenda, Josh.
All right, so here's the consent agenda. Consists of A through H. First item, 5A, is adoption of minutes. This would be the strategic planning workshop minutes of March 5th, 2022, regular session meeting minutes, February 14th, 2022, closed session meeting minutes, February 14th, 2022, and lastly, at the agenda meeting, February 10th, 2022 minutes. 5B is a call for public hearing to add text for mobile food vendors and mobile food vendor courts. If you'll recall, this looks familiar. We did deal with this a couple of months ago. We have spoken with the health department, and we need to add some more language to this to make sure we're satisfying the Buncombe County Health Department requirements for mobile food vendors. 5C is a budget amendment for the trade of used firearms for the police department. 5D is Black Mountain Police Department off-duty fee schedule, and I would like for Chief Parker to tell us a little bit about 5D, which is our off-duty. Please come up here,
Yeah,
sir.
it'd be great to come up, Chief. Yeah, and I had asked Josh for this just so that everyone could understand just a bit.
Yes.
A little more clearly what was going on, and you could be the one to help us.
Good evening. So a lot to see on some of the requests that I'm going to bring forward in the next year or so. This is basically part of the accreditation process. What is best practice? What is best policy? Number one, currently, right now with our off-duty, someone fills out a contract and then the person who has the contract pays the officer hand-to-hand transaction. That's not best practice. So that's one of the reasons is we want to make sure that there's no improprieties. One, that it's managed by the town. No, there hasn't been any accusation of any improprieties. It's just best practice from accreditation. Number two is making sure right now they're not covered under the workers' comp if they work under a different employer. And so it stays within us, even though regardless if something happened to them, they'd be coming to the town regardless. So basically, that is two of the things. And then the third thing is looking to we currently $40 an hour, looking to move that to $50 an hour. The reason why we're looking for the hourly fee to up is basically we're having trouble getting people to fill off-duty work. It's on their days off. So it causes a lot of times, if it's a 2 or 3 hours, it's usually 4, 5, or 6 hours that they're coming in for their off day. And so just filling it, we feel like it'll help us if we increase the fee.
Right. This is for off-duty work within the city limits.
Yes, sir.
And I think another reason for the fee increase is once the town starts paying that out, we do hold back certain taxable amounts.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Can you give an example of what an off-duty, who would hire an off-duty police officer?
So anywhere from, let's say, some of the marathons that have occurred, they might need traffic control, which in a typical day, if we don't have enough officers to fill that traffic control, this guarantees that they make sure they have somebody there for safety. Say Silverado's has music events. We don't work the bar, but we will work the music events. So we're making sure that there's safety and security. So something on a site where they think that they might need some extra help is where off duty. It's not something that the town's going to pay for and we don't have the resources to give. It's for people who need extra resources.
Right. Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Thank you, chief. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Item 5E is a recreation fee schedule amendment for the pool. I'm going to ask Mr. Josh Henderson to talk you through that, as well as item H. But he'll do E first, and then we'll go F and G. And then H.
A couple things relating to the pool budget that I want to kind of bring forth tonight. The first deals with our personnel. We haven't had any rate increases at the pool since 2018, which is right about the time I started. We spent last pool season with 5 unfilled positions, and we got incredibly lucky that we didn't have any COVID-related illnesses or anything like that that would have caused us to shut down the pool for the day. So we're looking at the increases. I think you guys have a copy of this in your packet, so you can see those there. Just honestly, to be competitive with other part-time jobs, the main reason that we are able to fill a lot of the pool positions each summer is due to the fact that we have a swim team, and a lot of those kids grow up on the swim team. They remain invested in the pool and they come back and work. So let's recruit people kind of outside of that realm so that we can fill those positions and have a successful season. I'm also asking for a fee schedule amendment with the group rates. We have never had a group rate at the pool. We have family passes, individual passes and things, but we have a lot of summer camps that come through. We have a lot of groups like the Black Mountain Home, Black Mountain Academy, those types of people that come and use the pool, and we've always just had them buy family passes. So we want to create some group rates to help them out for the summer. And then lastly, we just wanted to increase our lap swim by creating a pass and going up on that rate as well.
All right. Any questions for Josh on those? All right. Thank you, Josh.
Item 5F will be a resolution of support, and the resolution by the town of Black Mountain in support of the Asheville Buncombe Sports Complex. We heard a presentation from that earlier. Item 5G is a resolution by the town of Black Mountain in support of Ukraine, which you heard as well earlier. And then H, a summer camp temporary employee pay increase.
So again, we summer camp last year with no staff. So I used my administrative assistant and we cut the enrollment in half in order to run summer camp. And we did it to get through, but we can't do it again. And we've had these jobs posted since February the 1st and we have no applicants. So we're seeking to increase that in hopes that we can have some summer camp help this year so we can run summer camp.
Questions for John?
I just want to say out loud that I know that you're very sensitive to the cost of these camps, because so many families that are of modest means rely on them during the summer. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, appreciate
We
that.
are all aware of that and very concerned, and know that you wouldn't be asking for this if you didn't absolutely have to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's your consent agenda.
Thank you. Any questions for Josh on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for it.
So moved.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, no. We have no unfinished business this evening, but our new business is to adopt an updated code of ethics, which the town attorney is going to go over, and we have a ZBA appointment. And in that regard, does any member of the public wish to make comment on our new business items? Come up to the table, please.
I'm passing out a printout of the provision C6. That's, you might have it, that is the road. Provision that I am going to address. The existing code of ethics that was adopted, Sean's on here. The existing code that was adopted in 2010, as well as the new one that's being discussed here, provided for all board members to file with the town clerk a written signed disclosure statement which addressed conflict of interest. I was interested to know what those were, what the conflicts of interest were, and I filed the report, a public records report, and this is the response I got from the town clerk. It does not appear that the C6 of our internal policy it does appear that this section of C6 of our internal policy has been overlooked in the past. As far as I can tell, no such documentation has been given to me or any previous clerk. However, we do intend to do so going forward. And that was December 13, 2021. My question is, are we conforming to the code of ethics? Have you received notice it's a violation of the code of ethics? And if we don't take the code of ethics seriously, then what's the point of modifying it to update it to statutes from the state? I've asked for questions. I've tried to determine if anybody's provided that. I don't know if I haven't had a response from the town clerk, and I don't know if you're complying with it. And I think that's public's right to know. And I hope you're concerned about it, because it's part of your code of ethics.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make comment? And this is on the new business item.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Patricia Thompson. I'm a retiree. I taught school and I sold computers and love both of them. I live at Highlands Farms, at Gibbons Highland Farms at 221 Valley Ridge Lane in Black Mountain, and I also enjoy living out there. What I would like to address the board tonight with is that I am on the board of the Sustainability Committee at Gibbons Highland Farms. And we are in full support of CCL's proposed climate solution.
Excuse me, this portion of public comment is only pertaining to our new business items. It's not for comment on any other topics.
Is this old business or Is this
It's,
not
it's
business?
not on the bit, it was not on our agenda whatsoever, except for the report that's already been given. So I'm sorry, I'll just need to ask you to sit down. This was for the new business items that are on the agenda tonight.
How could I come and say that we're in support of CCL and its efforts?
You could do that at the next town board meeting, and you can do it in the public, those public comments at the very first of the meeting. That's when you do it and sign up, and just make sure you get your name on there and you can do that. But we'd love to have you come next month.
I will come in my red dress.
All right. We'll look forward to it. Thank
Okay.
you. All right, Attorney Sneed, if we're ready for that.
Where you've got this amendment is, there's very minor changes in this. I just brought it up a little bit to conform with 160D. Up until a couple of years ago, this board and the advisory boards, the only thing that would conflict you out is if you had a personal financial interest in the property or the subject matter. 160D broadened that a little bit to be, you can't participate and vote if you have and it's not a financial interest, but there's a financial impact on you, your family members, or close business associates. And so there's just a couple wording changes. It goes from a financial interest to financial impact on you, and expands to if your family or business associates have that interest or have that impact, you're conflicted out. That's the only real change you see here. I will address Mr. Sloan's question. There was in the old code that when elected, and then each year each board member would file a statement that would set out if you have any business dealings or you anticipate business dealings with the town, and it said if you had any real property in town, you had to disclose that. That's a little bit of overreach. I've modified that state that you'll give the information if you anticipate you have property that you're going to develop in the upcoming year, or that you'll be asking for rezoning of in the upcoming year. You don't have to sit down every year and list all your real estate holdings unless you expect something might come before this board or the planning board or the Board of Adjustment affecting your properties. Just sort of limit that a little bit. Don't have that form created. I was waiting to see how the board votes tonight, and I'll create that form, and Savannah will have them. It'll be a 1-minute exercise for most of you, and calendar it so every January, Savannah says, drop by and fill out your form, and it will comply with what Mr. Sloan's asking about.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Sneed? I would add that we have some other boards that we serve on that do require, with the State Ethics Commission, a filing of a public disclosure. I serve and am currently the chair. The board appointed me to represent the town at the MPO, French Broad River MPO, and I serve as the current chair, which that's not relevant to the requirement each and every year to file a financial disclosure with the State Ethics Commission, and that's public record. And I also serve on the board of the North Carolina Arboretum, and they require a similar, oddly enough, it's actually a little more stringent because it's a university system. The Arboretum is part of the university system, and it's a covered board, meaning they want to know if you've had a lobbyist has, entertained you or whatever. So those are annual disclosures that the Ethics Commission at the state level requires that doesn't hit the town. I guess what hits the town is 160D now, I suppose.
Well, and again, that disclosure is not required. You adopted this, or a prior board
Right.
adopted this in your ethics rules.
Right.
But it's not in state or statutory requirement.
And just to make it clear that conflict comes, Ron, maybe you can think of a good example, but it would be, I own a piece of property that the town is purchasing. I'm personally involved with the contract that the town is entering into in some way, or my wife.
That's the most direct. Now, it could be something where you're not purchasing, your wife's not purchasing, but Josh is purchasing it next door to you, and he's gonna put in whatever. You would, if you were next door and have a substantial financial impact on you, or your business partner lives next door and there's gonna be a substantial financial impact on him, then you may be disqualified. It's a little more far reaching than it was.
Any questions for Ron? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve R 2201 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Hay. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Administration agreement with Ncdot, Josh.
I would ask that our planning director, Jessica Trotman, lead you through B and C here.
Good evening. So item B is the administration agreement for the Ncdot and the town for the replacement of the 9th Street Bridge. We have funding allocated through the MPO for the replacement of the 9th Street Bridge to the tune of $680,000. And we are asking DOT's support, and that means them totally doing the administration of this project. DOT has requested that we move through this project through 3 separate agreements because of the lump sum match is required for each phase. So this is only for the PE phase, which will last somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 18 months. We're going to hope for 12, but that might be optimistic. So this is only for an agreement for DOT to do the administration. We will pay them the lump sum $40,000 fee for the PE at that time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Jessica on the contract with DOT, Ncdot? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the contract as presented.
So
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. And opposed, no. Pet and other waste ordinance and definition.
This ordinance comes to you from our MPDES requirements, our hefty stormwater permit from the state. We are required to have controls for fecal chloroform in our stormwater runoff, and pet waste is one of those things. So essentially, this says you cannot leave your pet's waste in public spaces. You need to be prepared with the doggy scooper when you're out walking your dog. And that is really the essence of that. The ordinance does go on to deal with debris in the drainage system, which is something that's very important. When we have waste, whether it be leaves, like grass clippings, put into whether it be a ditch or straight into an inlet, not only do they create debris jams in the system, they also create nutrient pollution that goes to the river, which is one of the reasons the Swanville River is on the impaired surface waters list. So this will allow us to manage folks dumping things into the MS4 system. You will also note that the town attorney and I went back and forth on this a little bit today, helping me to be clear on some of the requirements of this ordinance, where if you are managing stormwater on your own property, that it drains to our system, that it cannot ferry things into our system through that way either. So if you have a French drain that connects to the ditch, it cannot discharge leaves and sediment and whatnot into that ditch either. And that's it. Those are our big pieces out of those ordinances. And these are all coming straight from our NPDES permit for proper enforcement of that.
Which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Thank
That's what
you.
it stands for.
Questions?
Is there a penalty for not having a doggy bag? I know that it's required if you're requested, if anyone is requested who is authorized to enforce it. What happens if you don't have it?
Let's see, how is it defined?
We do
It's
not.
$50 a day.
$50 is a public nuisance.
It's defined as public nuisance.
$50 a day.
$50 a bag.
That's with the debris. That falls under the restrictions on debris.
The whole ordinance would go back to nuisance.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then I was wondering, I appreciate that we outline some best practices. I know that with debris pickup, the town picks up sticks and bag leaves and things like that. For my house and for many homes in the community, that there's a ditch out in front of, in the front yard next to the road. And the current guidelines with the Public Works Department is that there are set days that, you put it out there, you give them a call, and they'll come within the next 7 days. So, it could rain, it could snow, and, if I put things out there, I could easily get into the ditch, even if it's a beautiful day today, within the next 7 days. So I wonder if there's any guidance or best practices that we could outline for people to encourage them to follow as they're putting out debris. I don't know what they would be, but
I think we can just have them set far a little, back from the ditch. They're generally going to be okay. The complaints and things that we have witnessed and pictures of are people with their leaf blowers chasing all the leaves from their yard into the ditch, or landscaping companies bringing things on site and just dumping bags out into the ditch or the inlets, or garbage or rolls of carpet or any other strange things that can end up in a stormwater system. I don't know if there's any.
I don't want to speak for you, but I think, I think we could take some of those issues case by case, and if someone's, putting their brush out to be picked up and some of that gets in the ditch, I think there's probably some leniency that we can.
I think there's a certain margin of error that we would expect things to blow. The leaves fall from the tree into the ditch.
Sure.
That's not the same thing as intentionally dumping, a volume of material.
okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more comment. Jessica and I were working on this till the phones went off. On the penalty provision or the assessment for fees, if we have to clean up the mess for somebody.
Oh, yes.
There's a provision in there, 8.4.8B4 provides that in the event you create a problem on your property that's creating a problem in the air drainage system, and after notice you don't fix it, we can go in and clean it up. Much like a condemned building, there's a provision that if we do that, we can bill you for it. As written, it says it can be collected in the nature of a tax. I don't think there's authority for that. I recommend that 8.4.8B4 be changed, that such assessment shall become a lien on the property, which shall be collected as a money judgment. That's language straight from the condemned building code, so that shouldn't run afoul of the law. We should have authority to do it that way.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
So are you asking us to make that change tonight? along with
Correct,
these?
just-
Okay,
Yes, just adopt it with that amendment.
Gotcha.
All right, any other questions or comments? So then, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as presented and amended.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. D, we have an appointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We have one applicant, Chloe Pauline Riddle, and any comment, Savannah or Josh?
I'll just say that the ZBA board has not reviewed this application yet, but they are in a situation where they will have a lack of quorum at their next meeting, which is a very heavy agenda if we don't get someone appointed this evening. So just be aware of that as you're making your decision.
All right, so since we only have the one applicant, we'll just do this and without the ballots and so forth. So what's your pleasure, council?
Well, just to relieve the public, she does seem like an outstanding candidate. It's not like just anybody. I'm comfortable voting to support this nomination. I think she'd be a great asset to the board.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I echo that as well.
Great, well, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll move that we accept this nomination of Chloe Riddle to Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. So our last order of business is to continue our public hearing on the rezoning of 713 North Carolina Highway number 9. And in continuing it, we would be picking up on the public hearing. Jessica gave a staff report. We opened the public hearing. Our planning director gave a report, and we had public comment, and that is, we were in public comment, and that's when we continued the meeting. And so we'll pick up with public comment, but before I do that, let me just ask the planning director to give a brief intro, and then we will open the floor, because we're in the public hearing, back up for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. I'm going to give you that quick update. I'm going to speak to two concerns that were expressed in that from the public at that time, last meeting. Purchased the property at 713 NC9, and it's currently zoned TR4, and the applicant is requesting a zoning designation of HB8, which would allow for commercial use. Currently, it is a single-family dwelling. The planning board heard the request at their regular meeting in December and voted 6-1 not to recommend the HB8 zoning. The planning board at the time seemed to understand that this area is moving toward commercial. It is recognized in our future land use plan to become more commercial in the future. But they felt that they would like to potentially delay some of that change because they hope that the roundabout will be finished in some time to improve traffic conditions in that area. We do not have any data that suggests that that this business would contribute to the traffic in the area in any unique fashion, any more than what is already existing. There was also some concern about parking availability. I wanted to clarify, some of the examples were given were in central, from the public, were in central business where there are no parking requirements. TR4, which is now has to have 2 parking spaces for residents. In HB8, for an office space, you have to have 1 parking space per 300 square feet, plus 1 space for each employee and a loading area. So it would not be without parking requirements to whatever sort of office use, which is what the applicant is intending to use it for. There's also some concerns about height. And I just wanted to point out that for TR4, the maximum height is 35 feet, and at HB8, it is 40 feet. So there are not significant height differences between the 2 districts. And there's your summary.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you. welcome. Public comment, and just if you wish to make public comment, just let me know and come up. Yeah, come on up.
There are several people here. Go ahead.
Come up to the table, microphone right here. Sit down. Yeah, that's great. And just identify yourself and your address.
Thank you. And at Weaverville, so my address is actually 39 Alfay Farmway up at Weaverville. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I first want to express my appreciation for you being willing to continue this. I was out of town on February 14th. I wasn't able to be here, so I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you about this. As you heard, there really isn't any significant changes to the traffic. I know that was expressed as a concern, and I just was made aware that you did have the resident that lives up above this come and speak passionately about resistance to that change of this area becoming more commercial. And just a couple things I want to point out. One is that there is a big elevation difference, and I didn't bring pictures to put up here, but there's about a 20-foot elevation difference between this property and the one behind it. And there is a big buffer in terms of trees and vegetation between those as well. So it really separates the 2 properties quite well. The traffic concerns puzzle me a little bit because it doesn't, those are set out in the zoning, and for whatever use there would be that's allowed here, it wouldn't really be an issue. So there wouldn't be any significance and certainly no effect on that other property from what I can tell. In an effort to be a good neighbor to this and move this request forward, we did reach out to this person and offer a height limit and a requirement in terms of in terms of square footage that wouldn't be available through this zoning request, in the hopes that that might make a difference, gaining that support. But even without that restriction, I wanted to point out about the inherent limitations on the property that limit it from what all the possible things are within your zoning classification. And one in particular is that there is a septic system on the property. So that takes a significant amount of space there. I can't imagine anybody that would practically, tear that building down and start over. The height restrictions were mentioned. The shape of the lot is another restriction particularly as well. And then certainly the setback requirements are a restriction that you have as well for that particular piece of property. So the last thing that I want to address is the particular need for commercial space in Black Mountain, from what I understand. And I've done just a little bit of research and understand that there were 19 new businesses that opened in the last year in Black Mountain and 7 or so expansions. And there's very little commercial space available. In fact, only one building is listed in MLS right now, I believe, a couple different parts of that building, and then perhaps 3 others that are available right now. So thriving small businesses are certainly an important part of a town like Black Mountain, and having those in an established area that has other commercial things as well is certainly critical for growth and the vitality of the town. I don't know if you've, and I don't know, is there a way to put a picture of this up at all in terms of, I've got this to pass around at least to you.
They have this in their packet.
Okay, great. Yeah, you've got that. So what I did was just to highlight in the ones in green that I have on there are the things that are nearby that are not residential classification right now. And the one in red is the property that we're asking this for. So it's contiguous to commercial property right on the north. And then this is the church across here, and then Livingstone Construction right across the street as well. So appreciate your consideration. Would certainly be open to any questions that any of you would have. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. My name is Sonia Melton. I live at 115 Hill Street. My husband Kevin is the one that usually is up here talking, but it's me today. We have been against that for several reasons, not just the height. We're also concerned about the traffic. There's no way to know. He says, okay, well, the town of Black Mountain needs more thriving businesses. The more thriving the business is, the worse the traffic would be. So that adds to that, not to mention that there's very little parking there anyway. Most from the house up, there are 6 residents, I believe 6. And from what I understand, they're all opposed to it. Why should we bring a business into our neighborhood? It's not needed. We have kids, children, grandkids, playing and running around. We don't need to add traffic. I've seen many of people pull up our road to turn around, very dangerously, might I add. If you've been up there, you would know how bad Hill Street is, how you can't see around the curve. But there have been so many people come up to turn around, and that would probably happen even more so if that was a business for people trying to find it, because it's kind of in a curve, which makes it hard. Yeah, I know the town might want more businesses, which makes more money for the town. But what about the residents? If they're pushing more businesses into their backyard, that doesn't make it, valuable to us when we just want to live there. We don't want to sell the house and move. So it's not about the money for us. It's about having our community, our neighborhood. And we love it the way it is. I know that there's always going to be change, but I don't think bringing a business into a neighborhood, one that's already struggling in the traffic situation, if you know anything much about Highway 9 going up and down, I would request that even if it's even a thought on your mind, to maybe postpone it, to wait and see, like the roundabout that's coming in a few years, hopefully. There at the Highway 9, Blue Ridge Road. See if that helps traffic first. And if it does, revisit.
Again, about the business down below, look, literally I could, when there have been people there, I can hear them. You know, I don't have a problem with that, but what kind of a business will move into there? Will it be a business that you can't restrict the noisiness? You know, can you restrict the kind of people that come in there? You know, you want your neighborhood and community to be safe. And yeah, we were worried about the height, you know, because you never know if someone comes in there and buys it, tears it down and rebuilds, decides to build 3-story house, you know, or sorry, 3-story business. You know, that's just a few of the concerns that we have. I'm sure I'm probably leaving off one or two, but I have a couple other people here that also have opinions on it from the neighborhood as well. Any questions?
Thank you for your comments.
Sure. I don't think I did as good as Kevin.
Be proud of you. I'm Joe, 309 North Doherty Street. I own property within 200 feet of the property in question. My property is already zoned commercial, but I'm here to speak in support of the residential neighborhood. I know the folks who live there. If I were a businessman and I came into Black Mountain to buy a piece of property like that, I'd want to rezone it as well. So I understand the desire to make that commercial, but the residents are very concerned there. It's a very dangerous corner, very dangerous curve. That section of number 9 is, if you ever go up there, it's terrible. If you come out Hill Street, they're mirrors so you can see the traffic. Anything that would increase traffic there would be detrimental to that residential neighborhood. That's one reason I'm postponing developing any of my properties until that's figured out. But there is a proposal from DOT to put a roundabout and to relocate part of number 9. At that point, it might be more appropriate, and this neighborhood might be more amenable to having a commercial neighbor. But once it's zoned commercial, it's going to be commercial. And although these owners are promising things, they could sell it to someone else, and they can put something, they can put a convenience store or something there if they want to stick it in there. But I think right now it's premature. I think at some point all that property may want to be rezoned commercial, but I think it's really up to the neighborhood to decide that. And that's the decision the planning board made. The planning board was swayed by the argument that the existing neighbors, existing residents should be protected first before we consider expanding commercial use along that street. Like I say, I have sympathy with any business. If I were coming in from out of town and bought that property, I'd ask for the same thing because I'd like to maximize my return on the investment. But the thing is, when you buy a piece of property, you already know it's zoned residential, and you've got the opportunity to make that decision at that point. You're never guaranteed that you can get something rezoned just because it's attractive. So I would support the planning board on this. They voted 6-1 to keep things as they are, at least until the neighborhood expresses an interest to change. So I would support the planning board. I would support the neighbors. My property adjoins the Meltons. And they are kind of squeezed in between some commercial properties, but I know the people who live off Hill Street, and they're all residents there, and they want to keep it that way, at least until things are changed on Highway 9. So I'd support leaving it alone. Thank you.
Anyone else make comments? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Board?
Personally, I'm in favor of going with the planning board's recommendation. It was a strong one. And I don't know that we need a motion if we're going to not change anything, correct?
Yeah, we need to take
Motion
action.
to deny.
Oh, deny? Okay. Well, then I'll make the motion to deny the rezoning request.
Thank you, Councilmember King. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would just say for Mr. Holland, thank you for coming and making the presentation here tonight. Certainly, you know, we are appreciative to hear of the things that you've reached out to do for the neighbors of this community. But as Mr. Tyson and Councilmember King have expressed, we are accountable to those people that have been here, and those people have spoken unanimously that they do not want the property rezoned at this point. For that, I think it's just to be upfront with you and let you know that that would be the way I'll be voting as well in support of Councilmember King's proposed motion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would have to echo Councilman Ryan's comments also. I believe it is probably our utmost responsibility to listen to the citizens of this town. That's one of the things that we're here for. So, but thank you for coming and presenting.
Anyone else?
And I thank Mr. Holland as well. Thank you for coming. It's always a tough question. I don't know that I totally come down on the side of the neighbors get to decide, because it's a bigger issue. But in this case, I mean, I drive past that 2 or 3 times a day, and the traffic concerns are just significant in my mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just kind of echo what everyone else has been saying, and I think that it's important for me to note what the planning board noted as well, which is that there's a lot of potential for change here in the next upcoming years, and this is probably not the time to rezone.
So everyone's spoken, and we can do. I would just reiterate again, that's what a public hearing is for. We're glad you could come and be here. And I echo Bill's comment, though. We can't just let neighbors take a vote and let that guide the decision either. We have to take it through the process and listen to all the other things that we have to consider in making these decisions. And I think the board has spoken well about it. And so I believe we're ready to move along with this, and I would entertain, we have a motion on the floor. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you. So, town manager, town attorney, have anything for us?
Nothing new. One thing, a meeting or two back, you directed that we update the agreement between the library board and the county, or between the town and the county concerning use of our library. I talked to the county attorney's office about that. They volunteered to take the lead and give us a first draft, and then he forgot. I talked to Brandon a couple of days ago, Brandon Freeman, and he said he would get us the draft within the next week. I'll be circulating that in the next board meeting. We should have something to work with.
Great, thank you. Josh?
And I'll just real quick give you a quick update on the FEMA projects. I did get notice we do have full funding for our Greenway, so that will be remedied. If you've been out there, you've noticed that we've had to post a notice according to FEMA's rules, and that has to be posted for 30 days before we can do anything. So that has been posted. As far as the golf course bridge.
Josh, how much is?
I'm sorry, that total project's about a little over $50,000 to fix the Greenway. The golf course, FEMA is not gonna give us the full amount of funding. However, in speaking with a representative for the North Carolina Emergency Management, he has assured me he has the remaining of that funding to cover that, so we won't have to pay anything. That total cost, the cheapest bid we got for that was $20,000. FEMA is gonna pay $5,000 of that. And then the stream restoration, I was skeptical that we would get any funding for that project from FEMA. It looks like they're gonna give us about $12,000. Now that total project's over $100,000. But we have been told by Division of Water Resources, we can reapply for another grant, which will cover 50% of that cost. So we will be searching for some more funding for that project, but just wanted to update you on that.
Thank you.
When do we expect movement on the Greenway and the bridge?
So once the public notice is finished, it should be pretty quickly after that. So I'm hoping before the end of summer, we will have the Greenway fixed. It's my goal.
Great, thank you. Council? Anybody? Mike? All right, yeah. All right.
I just wanted to recognize or mention that this is International Women's Month and offer a shout out to all the women on the Town of Black Mountain staff who are out there getting it done every day.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? So I have, if I can pull this off, I don't think it's too complicated. I meant to bring in the actual article, but our librarian, Melissa, present, in town, sent an excerpt from the Asheville Citizen Times, March the 2nd, 1968, and asked me to read it for a little library celebration that's going on. And so if you'll, whoops, hold on. This is not long.
This is moving day, Saturday, March the 2nd, 1968. The library's move from the old location above City Hall was exciting and a fun time for many children. So many got into the act. School children with their wagons, local residents with pickup trucks from Tyson's Furniture, an operation involving the move of more than 12,000 books, furniture, and supplies was completed in 4 hours. This was due to the careful planning of librarians and the invaluable help of the teenage members of the Red Coach Coffee House and Boy Scout Troop 44. The operation was a remarkable display of community spirit and cooperation. It was a great day and fulfilled the dream of many Black Mountain citizens. This is from the Asheville Citizen Times, March 7th, 1968, and the book, A History of Black Mountain, North Carolina, and Its People by Joyce Justice Paris. I'm Larry Harris, Mayor, Town of Black Mountain. I offer my comments with gratitude to the Tyson family and many others who gave to make the Black Mountain Library building in its current location a reality, and for the countless hours of volunteer service to the community by so many at the Black Mountain Library. Thank you.
So the only thing I would suggest is that we look into that Red Coach group. Mr. Sneed, were you a part of that?
Great stuff.
There you go. Enough said right there. No, thank you. Thanks to everyone. Have a good evening and meeting adjourned.